Welcome. We have some bilingual researchers from McMaster University, from keyboard to scalpel, a systematic review on the role of esports in surgical skill and cognitive training. Whoever is going to be sharing their screen, if you could do that now, and I'll let you all introduce yourselves. Thank you all for calling in. How's everybody doing today? Yeah. Okay. I see two thumbs up there. There they are. All right. Excellent. And wait till you get it into presentation mode.
There we go. Okay.
Awesome. I think you are, what? Wait till you're all set. You all can take it away. Thanks so much.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Dr. Jenny, for the introduction. So yeah, this is our project. My name is Muhammad Ali Qureshi, and we're presenting from keyboard to scalpel, which is a systematic review we conducted on the role of esports in surgical skill, as well as cognitive training as well. So really quickly, I also just wanted to introduce the rest of the team and the rest of the co-authors as well. So I'm here with Mohammed, Alex, and Ahmed. If you guys want to introduce yourselves really quickly as well.
Yeah, sure. My name is Muhammad, and I am an undergraduate student at McMaster University.
Hello, my name is Alex. I'm in my second year of undergraduate here at McMaster University.
Hello, my name is Ahmed, and I am in my third year of undergraduate studies at McMaster University.
Perfect. All right. Thank you guys. And my name is Muhammad Ali Qureshi, as I said already. And I'm a medical student at the University of Alberta. So yeah, this is our project. And really quickly, just to get into things, our presentation today is going to follow this overall kind of outline, where we're going to start off with an introduction of the paper and the background as well. Following that, the background. Then we'll go over what the research review question was, as well as our objectives in this study, what the impact and the innovation of conducting this study was like, the study design that we followed, as well as the methodology, and then following that, the future steps for this research area.
Okay, so a brief intro of what our topic is about. We want to highlight that there's an intersection between gaming and medicine, and this creates a new opportunity for surgical education research, specifically for the translation of PC games into surgical education. Competitive PC esports specifically demand precise hand-eye coordination, spatial reasoning, and rapid decision-making, which are all skills directly transferable into surgery. Esports training by itself can enhance technical and cognitive skills, which are also skills required by surgery. So next slide. As a brief background and rationale for our research, PC-based esports such as first-person shooters, real-time strategy games, or multiplayer online battle arenas can all rely on fine motor skills to control a character through keyboard and mouse, which uses specific mechanics that have a huge overlap with certain technical procedures, specifically surgical procedures, including laparoscopy and robotic surgery. There have been many previous studies that looked at gaming and how gaming can improve surgical simulation performance, but none of them isolated competitive esports and keyboard and mouse inputs. So we propose a targeted systemic review to clarify these effects. So through our review question, we aim to ask what is the effect of competitive esports gaming involving keyboard and mouse mechanics on surgical skills development and cognitive performance in surgeons, surgical residents, and trainees.
So the objectives of our study is to synthesize evidence on how competitive PC esports influences surgical skill development, and we aim to do that by exploring cognitive benefits such as reaction time, visuospatial ability, and attention. We also want to identify gaps to inform future training and educational models. And we want to first review to directly link the role of keyboard and mouse esports in surgical skill and cognitive training as well. The review design and framework follows the PRISMA 2020 systemic review guidelines. screening, data extraction, and appraisal by 2 independent reviewers, discrepancies resolved by a 3rd reviewer as well. And we the study quality assessed using Cochrane ROB2 RCTs and Robbins I non-randomized studies. So the databases that we used were Medline, PubMed, Embase, CINAHL, PsycInfo, PsycInfo, and Web of Science, and Scopus, sorry. The inclusion criteria included surgical populations such as surgeons, residents, and trainees, exposure to competitive PC esports, outcomes in surgical or cognitive performance, and the exclusion criteria included console or VR-only gaming, non-surgical participants, and casual or non-competitive players.
Moving on to data extraction and quality appraisal. In terms of data to be collected, we're still looking for study design and characteristics, participant demographics, esports type, duration and intensity, and surgical and cognitive outcome metrics. In terms of risk of bias tools, we'll be using the Cochrane ROB2 for RCTs and the Robbins I for observational studies. Moving on to analysis, we'll be conducting descriptive synthesis of all included studies. We'll perform meta-analysis, if the data permits, on surgical and cognitive outcomes. And we'll also do subgroup analysis by esports genre. So as an example, FPS versus MOBAs, level of surgical training, and frequency and duration of play. We'll also be looking to explore relationships between competitive intensity and skills acquisition. Look towards the future now. We could guide integration of esports-based modules in surgical curriculum. We also have potential to develop game-based assessment tools for early skill identification. We may expand to simulation-based learning, training incorporating esports mechanics. And there's also broader implications of the study for neuroplasticity, cognition, and motor learning and medical training.
Yeah, so that's pretty much our presentation here today. This is just a list of the references that we used, mainly to inform our background and rationale and kind of the reasons to conduct this study, as well as the introduction to this whole research field and what's already been done. Yeah, and that's pretty much it from us when it comes to this presentation. So thank you guys for listening, and if you guys have any questions, we can answer them right now.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. You guys definitely are the most streamlined presentation so far. So we appreciate you keeping us on schedule. So based upon your study, what do you see as the most transferable learnings that, you know, you could maybe be like the practical applications of your research?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when it comes to surgical training in general, or like the typical simulators that we're able to use in these high-end academic centers, the general trend is that there's a very, very high cost associated with that. And additionally, it's not as accessible to for training, for example, in lower resource settings. So if we're talking about, for example, developing countries or even rural settings in rural areas that are under-resourced in developed countries like Canada, rural US, there's definitely potential for some adaptation or some gamification here in order to turn that into some form of, like, I guess you could call it surgical training, or even just like something that's able to enhance surgical skills on the side in addition to formalized training, or potentially even just looking into what beneficial hobbies or what beneficial skills might medical students have when they're applying into surgical residency programs, and residency program directors looking at those qualities and looking at those hobbies to see if there's some sort of link with between that and patient outcomes. So I think it's fairly broad right now, and that's why I feel like there's a lot more work that can be done in this area in order to be able to find that out. And yeah, I'm seeing another question here. Greens from Turkey. Well, welcome to you guys from Turkey. Thanks for the presentation. I would like to ask if there are specific esports games that are more effective to develop surgery skills. So from the existing literature, from what I remember at least, there's a lot of literature on the topic regarding video gaming in general. When it comes to competitive esports specifically, not so much. But the general trend that we were able to see was that games like FPSs, first-person shooters, and action games have really, really heavy, or not really heavy, but they do have correlations to surgical skill when it comes especially to robotic surgery and laparoscopy. So that's kind of what the evidence base has looked like so far. But yeah, thank you for the question. What other professions or fields might benefit from gaming according to your research? That's a really great question. I feel like, that's a great question. Yeah. When I think about the direct kind of link or the direct correlation to surgery, I imagine it being very, very focused on the procedural side of things. Because obviously surgery in general is a unique field in the sense where there's a very high cognitive demand in addition to the procedural demand. But that's why, surgeons, experienced surgeons, they practice the same thing over and over again in order to try to reduce that cognitive demand as much as possible. So I think a lot of different fields and a lot of different professions that require that level of procedural skill. So there's definitely links to construction, definitely links to things which need to be done in a time-sensitive manner. And again, require that procedural, I guess you could say dexterity and that procedural skill, which would benefit from this. The links to laparoscopy specifically are pretty heavily in the idea that the laparoscopy instruments that are used, like the laparoscopes, as well as the other instruments used in laparoscopic surgery, as well as robotic surgery, are very similar in the sense where they're kind of types of minimally invasive surgeries where there's the incision that you make in an individual and a patient is not as large to promote recovery. So when we're looking at that, we're looking at more kind of micro procedural skills as well. So I think there's definitely potential for a link to microsurgeries, micro procedural as well, micro procedural things as well. So like macro construction, maybe not so much, but when we're talking about micro construction, micro manufacturing, things in that field, I immediately see a link to mechanical engineering because I feel like there's a lot of links between surgery and mechanical engineering. Even though I don't know much about mechanical engineering, so I may be completely wrong about that. But yeah, that's what I would say. From my like, I don't really know too much about fields aside from medicine and surgery. And even within this field, I'm not like an expert, but that's what I would say. I feel like, at least from our findings and from what the rationale for the background information from this project, I think that's what this would be really transferable to be.
Yes, to add on to that, since I have I am a software engineer. In software engineering, you do need a lot of hand-eye coordination when it comes to different robotic coding stuff. So a lot of times when you're doing translation robotics, for example, you code like a robotic arm that will follow minute movements and translate that into like big machinery or heavy machinery. So with that, you do need good. There is a translation between gaming skills and um, the field of engineering. And also when it comes to aviation or airplanes, you can do a lot of simulations or gaming simulations, similarly to driving or like Formula One racing and other things like that in the same field.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And next question, where might you fit this into a med school's curriculum during classes or residency or elsewhere? Also another really, really great question. I'd say that most, from what I've seen, at least in North American residency programs, is that most surgical residencies are run out of these really, really big academic tertiary centers. So they already have like state-of-the-art simulations, especially when it comes to procedural skills and especially surgery as well. Definitely could see something at the med school level though, for sure. Because even though most med schools do have that affiliation to these huge academic tertiary hospitals, there's so many residents, there's so many fellows, there's so many surgeons trying new things who are occupying those resources. So if we're talking about developed countries already, I can definitely see a link to med schools, particularly. When we talk about where in the curriculum, I think it's very case dependent, but most medical students, at least anecdotally from what I've seen, are able to make a decision on what kind of specialties they are interested in during their third year and their fourth year of medical school. That's also when clerkship comes into play as well, and where they're being evaluated on their procedural skills and their surgical skills on top of the medical knowledge that they learn. So I think it's definitely somewhere in the latter half of medical school's curriculum, at least in the North American system, which is a 4-year program usually. And then, of course, I think there's definitely potential in developing countries, regardless of stage, depending on how under-resourced it is. because I feel like it's definitely something that's potent, like the correlations do exist. It's something that's pretty accessible as well. And I also do believe that if altered in a specific way with the specific games that are played, there's definitely potential for it to be more formalized and for the link to be even stronger to surgical skills. And an example of that is like, while we're talking about esports specifically in this presentation, there is some researchers who actually created a specific Wii remote, which is in the exact same shape of a laparoscope. And they created a game where you basically you can't just use the laparoscope, the Wii remote's lying right on top of that templated moat, and then you basically just play the game. And the game is essentially develop skills that are important in laparoscopy, and as well as robotic surgery, which is getting a lot more common as well, because robotic surgery is very, very different than like really, really invasive large incision surgeries, just by the sense that robotic surgeries are made by a lot of smaller incisions and robotic like probes essentially that already have instruments attached to them. Whereas, for example, something like open heart surgery is a very large incision down the middle, and those are very, very different, very, very different skills entirely for the surgeon. And also the surgeon piloting that robot. I think I'm not sure if anyone's heard the Da Vinci robot before, but that's a really popular form of robotic surgery, and it's definitely getting a lot more common these days. A huge example of that is, for example, like I spent a decent amount of time in a rural hospital in Canada, but even then they have a robotic OR in that hospital. So it looks like that's what the future of surgery is going to look like. And the skills that are required for robotic surgery are very different than the skills that are required for the traditional type of surgery that we are used to. Specifically when I talk about like macro surgery, like these really large incisions that are required, like open heart surgery, open brain surgery, open limb surgery, while there still definitely would be a requirement for that in really big trauma, for example, or really big operations. If the majority of the caseload is kind of trending towards these minimally invasive surgeries, then I feel like there's definitely a strong link here as well, particularly for under-resourced areas or for students who don't yet have access to really, really, really large centers that have these really fancy surgical simulation programs. But yeah, that's kind of my perspective on this. And for the next question, do you guys think the special or disabled surgeons would also get some benefits from esports via assisted or adaptive gaming technologies? That's a great question, actually. Yes, I think there's definitely potential there as well. One thing is that in surgery in general is not necessarily accessible in practice or in training. The simulations are not created in that way. And for example, there are some surgery types that like if I had to bring an example in, some surgeries are done seated, other surgeries require the surgeon to be standing up and leveraging appropriate body mechanics just because of the physical nature of that particular surgical operation. An example of that's like spine surgeries, which are just a lot more like scoliosis corrections, for example, do require a lot of physical force. Whereas something like an eye surgery, due to the microsurgical nature of that, it's a lot smaller. But like, and that's why the surgeries are done seated. So when it comes to esports as esports as like a gaming technology for surgeons in terms of accessibility for everyone, I definitely think there's potential there. I would have to explore this a lot more because I'm not entirely too sure of what the exact link is. And as we know, every disability is not the same. And to put that, like also every person is just not the same as well when it comes to training environments either. But esports in general are a lot more, I guess you could say, conducive to more audiences, whereas surgical simulators may not be.
Great. I do not see any more questions in the chat. So any other final words from any of the co-presenters here? All right, I guess not. Well, thank you all. Hey, that was probably the most questions we've got in one single presentation. So it's engaged the audience. We love it. So thank you all for presenting. If you can stop sharing your screen, and we will